The Rebbe starts off the Sicha by saying that we discussed many times that Rashi in his Pirush al Torah will always discuss any matter that's difficult or needs clarification in Pshut Shel Mikra. And when Rashi doesn't have an explanation for something in Pshut Shel Mikra, he will write, Eini Yodeya, I don't know, or something like. And therefore, when we find a difficulty in the simple reading of the Psukim, and Rashi doesn't comment anything about it at all, we must say either that according to Pshut Shel Mikra, there is no question at all, because al derech hapshat, it is just something that's self-understood, self-evident, or because this is something that would have been clarified by Rashi based on something else that Rashi had told us already previously. According to this, says the Rebbe, we need to understand in our parsha there seems to be a certain difficulty in the simple pshat of the psukim, which is just so obvious, even to a ben chamish lemikra is just right in your eyes, and we don't find that Rashi should say anything about it at all. The Rebbe says, after the Meraglim return from touring Eretz Yisrael, from spying on Eretz Yisrael, and they say, we're not going to be able to go up to these people because they're stronger than us. The Yidden, as a result of this, don't want to go into Eretz Yisrael. Hashem says, Akenu badever, I'm going to strike them down through a plague. So I'm going to annihilate the Yidden. I'm going to make you, Hashem, you Moshe Rabbeinu, into a great and powerful nation greater than the Yidden are currently. And Moshe responds to Hashem and says, V'shamu Mitzrayim is going to hear. You have taken this nation with all of your might and power. You have taken the Yidden out of Mitzrayim. And now, you kill these people, like one man. What are the nations going to say? Hashem is because of Hashem did not have the ability to bring the Yidden into Eretz Yisrael, the land that He promised them, and therefore, therefore, He killed them, He slaughtered them in the Midbar. Says the Rebbe, this seems to be completely not understood. How does it make sense? How is it possible that when we're dealing with such a thing of Hashem striking and annihilating all the Yidden, 600,000 Yidden, this is besides women and children, this is besides men under the age of 20 and over the age of 60. How is it possible that Moshe Rabbeinu is not expressing a tremendous claim and demand? And how is this possible for Hashem to do so? And all he's saying is that the Goyim are going to say that Hashem wasn't able to bring the Yidden into Eretz Yisrael. The Rebbe says everyone, even a little child, understands that the destruction of so many people, even when we're speaking about a human being being affected by this, he would be affected much more by the fact that so many people are being destroyed, much more than what people are going to say about him. How much more so when we're speaking about Hashem, and we're speaking about the creations that He had created, especially regarding Yidden, that they are Hashem's children. He takes them out of Mitzrayim, He chooses them as His special treasured nation. And yet, what is Moshe Rabbeinu arguing? And again, Moshe Rabbeinu is the one that led the Yidden up until now. He is the one that had Mesiras Nefesh for the Yidden. He's the one that said, Mechenina mesifrecha asher kosafte, erase me from your Sefer. This is going back to the story of Chet HaEgel. He is the one that asked the Eibishter to kill him rather than seeing all of these terrible things happening to the Yidden. And yet when Hashem comes over here and says that He's going to strike down the Yidden through a plague, annihilate them, and make Moshe Rabbeinu into a great nation, so he doesn't argue and demand, how is it possible to kill all of Klal Yisrael? They are the children of Hashem, B'ni B'chayri Yisrael, may such a thing never come to pass. But rather, his main argument is, V'amru HaGoyim, what are the Goyim going to say? That the Goyim are going to say that Hashem was not able to bring the Yidden into Eretz Yisrael. Now, even though it's true that this argument that the Goyim are going to say that Hashem can't bring into Eretz Yisrael is a matter of Chilul Shem Shemayim, desecration of Hashem's name, nevertheless, Moshe Rabbeinu should have demanded and asked first about how this actual idea of how is it possible to destroy the Yidden, and if anything, just add as a second point, V'amru HaGoyim, that in addition to this, the Goyim are going to say that Hashem can't bring the Yidden into Eretz Yisrael. We actually see this idea clearly as a proof to this sort of method. We see clearly by the Chet HaEgel. Moshe Rabbeinu there first is arguing, Lama Hashem yechra apcha ba'amecha, why are you getting so angry at the nation that you took out of Mitzrayim with all of your power and might? And only then he adds, Lama Yomru Mitzrayim, why should the Egyptians say that you had taken them out to kill them, etc.? Furthermore, says the Rebbe, it's not understood. We see that it's specifically this argument, though Moshe Rabbeinu says what the Goyim are going to claim, this is what brings about that Hashem is Shlach Kedvarecha, Hashem forgives the Yidden as Moshe Rabbeinu had requested, and this nullifies the decree practically, as Rashi himself says on the words of Shlachti Kedvarecha, that Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Kedvarecha, like you spoke, because of what you said, Pen Yoimru Mebilti Yechelas Hashem, that people might say that Hashem wasn't able to bring the Yidden into Eretz Yisrael. And Rashi goes on to clarify that Hashem is saying, Shelo Yischalel Shmi, that my name shouldn't be desecrated in this plague, by people saying that Hashem wasn't able to bring them into Eretz Yisrael, and therefore, in fact, I will not kill them now, suddenly, just as if they were one person, but rather, Hashem is now going to stretch it out and delay it over the next 40 years, doing it bit by bit, etc. And yet, says the Rebbe, although this seems to be such a quite obvious question, and we don't find that Rashi should deal with this in any way whatsoever, doesn't give any explanation on this. Says the Rebbe, we're going to understand it first by looking at Moshe Rabbeinu's words that he specifically uses over here, and the way he changes from his original expression. He says, "V'amru hagoyim," the goyim are going to say that what did Hashem do? Vayishchoteim b'midbar. He shechted them in the midbar. Now this is a total unusual expression when we speak about people, about human beings. Especially that Moshe Rabbeinu himself, in his words earlier, when he's saying, what he says to Hashem is, that if v'heimato es ha'am hazeh, if you kill these people, the regular word of misa, v'heimato. And in fact, if we look at Hashem's words, Hashem says, Akenu badever, I'm going to strike them with a plague. Nowhere before was this word shchita used. And suddenly Moshe Rabbeinu is using this word, vayishchoteim. So the explanation is that it's specifically in this word, vayishchoteim, this gives us and helps us understand why Moshe Rabbeinu is not demanding and arguing to Hashem about the actual fact that Hashem said, Akenu badever, that I'm going to strike them with a plague. What is the idea of shchita? When we speak about an animal, so everyone understands, even a Ben Chamish, a 5-year-old understands, that the shchita is now enabling this particular animal, making it fit, that it should be fitting for Ma'achal Adam, that a person should be able to eat it. That means, what's the purpose of shchita? The purpose of shchita is not the death, the killing in itself, but just the opposite. It's as a result of the shchita, this animal is now coming to a higher level. We're elevating this animal. It's now going to become part of the human being, part of the person. We learned already also earlier by the Akedah, when Avraham is going lishchot es benoi, what's he doing? He's going to carry out the will of Hashem, the command of Hashem. V'haleyu sham la'oila, he's going to be elevating Yitzchak. He should become a holy korban to Hashem. Says the Rebbe, in a similar way is the meaning of the word vayishchotem over here. How do we understand this? Says the Rebbe, it's understood and it's known, even in Pshutei Shal Mikra, we understand this from many psukim, that Hashem is rachum, v'chanun, compassionate and kind, the ultimate of goodness and kindness. And all of the commands of Hashem, whatever Hashem tells people generally, especially the mitzvahs that Hashem gives to the Yidden, his Am Segula, his treasured nation, is always only for the benefit of those that are getting these mitzvahs, these commands. When one lives according to the tzivuyim, according to the commands of Hashem, then the life ba'olam hazeh is in the best possible way, also in Gashmias. Right? We know the famous thing, for example, the Torah says, you follow Hashem's mitzvahs, then v'nasati geshmeichem be'itam, I'll give you the rain in the right time, and all of the brachas that the Torah enumerates. From this we also understand the other way around, when a person is not listening, not obeying to Hashem's commands, and then a punishment comes, as the Torah describes. So the intention is never the punishment per se, the punishment in itself, in order to take revenge, chas v'shalom, against the person or just to punish him, but it's always for the benefit of the person. The Rebbe explains. Since you have a person that was not acting in accordance to the will of Hashem, the command of Hashem, and that's the only way to really be able to live a proper, good life, both spiritually and physically, since the person had transgressed Averis, especially when we're speaking about very, very serious ones, so in order for the person not to have to suffer in this world, living a life of suffering in this world to the extent that he might turn around and say, Lamo lichayim, what's the point even of life? And furthermore, katzti b'chai, I'm totally disgusted with my life. So a person shouldn't suffer so much. Hashem actually takes away his physical life in this world for the benefit of the person. This is going to help him avoid that he shouldn't have to live a life of suffering and difficulty in this world. As Rashi himself had mentioned this idea already, and in fact earlier, and it's even he said it even in a greater chiddush, a greater idea. Avraham Avinu was a tzaddik gomer. He was Yirei Elikim, a God-fearing person, etc., etc., and yet he passes away 5 years before his time, so that he shouldn't have physical suffering in this world, seeing how Esav is conducting himself. To take that a step further, by an Aveira, like in our case, there's an additional point. When there's the Oynish of Misar Achmanu Litzlan, it's coming to purify, to elevate the person, and to purify the person, that he should be able to have a greater life, the life of Olam Haba. And again, this is something that Ben Chamish Lemikra had learned about earlier in Rashi itself, also about Chayi Olam Haba. Says the Rebbe, so now we can understand what happens in our parsha. And why Moshe Rabbeinu, in his words, is not focusing on the actual idea itself, that Hashem is about to strike down the Yidden, as he had done by Chet HaEgel. Why is that? When the Yidden sin by Chet HaEgel, so Moshe davens to Hashem, Lama Hashem yechra apcha ba'amecha, why are you getting angry at your people that you took out of Mitzrayim? And basically what Moshe was really saying is that Yidden could return to Hashem. In other words, they could do tshuva. And this will atone for their Averis, and then they'll be able to continue living a good life from now on in this world, not a life of pain, not a life of suffering, because they're going to continue to follow in Hashem's path and listen to Hashem. But over here by the Chet HaMeraglim, Hashem says, Ad how much is this nation going to make me angry? How long are they not going to listen to me as after all the miracles that I have done amongst them? What's being emphasized over here? In other words, Hashem is saying it's not like a one-off or one-time thing. They did an Aveira and fine, they could do tshuva. Ad Ana means this is constantly the way they're behaving. And there's no change for the better, no change to the good after all the previous Aveiras. Furthermore, it's not just transgressing a mitzvah of Hashem. This is something that's really touching a very fundamental thing of emunah. Ad Ana lo ya'aminu bi, they're totally not believing in Hashem. And therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu can't come along and ask just for the Yidden themselves, that they shouldn't be punished, because he understands also that this akenu badever v'yishenu, the fact that Hashem wants to strike them, is not for the punishment per se, but rather it's for their benefit, as we just explained at length. And this is why Moshe Rabbeinu is using this term vayishchotem. He doesn't use the term hariga rachmana litzlan. He's saying that he understands its idea of shchita, that it's for the benefit of the person that is being shechted. It says that the idea of shchita is from the word ein v'shachat elo mashach, means he's being drawn. In other words, he's going to be drawn from one place to another. He's going to be elevated to a higher life, the life of the neshama in olam haba. So Moshe understands this. But Moshe's argument is that the main chisaron, the main problem over here is going to be, since what was the issue with the Yidden? The fact that they lacked emunah. As Hashem says, how much longer lo ya'aminu bi, they're not going to, why aren't they believing in me, despite all of the miracles that I've done for them? All of the miracles that I did for them should have caused them that they should believe that Hashem has the ability to fulfill all of his promises. If that's the case, Moshe Rabbeinu says, how does it make sense that Hashem is now going to kill the Yidden all as one, if this is going to cause the exact same problem, the lack of emunah, and now it's going to cause the lack of emunah by the Mitzrim, by the Goyim? They saw how Hashem is the one that took the Yidden out of Mitzrayim, and now they're going to be losing their emunah in Hashem. The Goyim that heard all about Hashem are going to say Hashem is not able to bring the Yidden into the land that he promised them. That Hashem chas v'shalom, as if he's not able to fulfill his promises, his oaths. That means Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, how is it possible that this punishment for the Yidden should be one that's coming to deal with, trying to avoid the whole problem of a lack of emunah by the Yidden and this sin that they did, and at the same time causing, number one, a lack of emunah by the Goyim, and therefore, also, the bottom line is that this is going to cause also that they're not going to listen and fulfill the commands of Hashem that the Goyim are commanded to do. And this is what Moshe Rabbeinu is arguing to Hashem. The Rebbe now asks a question, or is preempting a question. One could ask, The word Vayishchotem that Moshe Rabbeinu is using is not that Moshe Rabbeinu is using it as part of what he is saying that Hashem is doing. He is saying that this is what the Goyim are going to say. V'amru ha-Goyim, the Goyim are going to say that because Hashem wasn't able to bring them into Eretz Yisrael, Vayishchotem, this is the reason why he slaughtered them, why he shechted them. But here's the problem. According to the understanding of the Goyim, according to what they're going to think, seemingly, the way we understand it up until now, they don't know that it's because of the Aveirus of the Yidden. They don't know that it's for the benefit of the Yidden, like the idea of Shechita. They don't know that it's all to bring them to Olam Haba. They think it's all because Hashem is unable to bring them into Eretz Yisrael. As Rashi in fact says, that when they hear Sha'ato Hergim, you're killing them, they're not going to say, oh, it's because they sinned. They're going to think it's because you couldn't fight against them. Sorry, they're going to think that against the Mitzrim you were able to fight, but not against the inhabitants of Eretz Yisrael you weren't able to fight. So the question then is, why is Moshe Rabbeinu saying that the Goyim are going to say Vayishchotem? Says the Rebbe, simply you could say that Moshe Rabbeinu is putting this in as part of their words to hint at the idea of why it is we should even take into consideration the words of the Goyim. That is, since the real point of Akenu Badever, since the real point of why you want to kill them is for the idea of Shechita, for the idea of benefit, that there shouldn't be this lack of emunah in Hashem by Yidden. So therefore it doesn't make sense that from this itself should come out something the opposite of good, the opposite of the emunah in Hashem's ability by the Goyim, as we just explained. But the Rebbe is not happy with this. The Rebbe says this does not suffice. Because at the end of the day, it would have been more appropriate that this word Vayishchotem should have been in Moshe Rabbeinu's own words to Hashem. When he is speaking, if you kill the Yidden, then this is what the Goyim are going to say. So he could have in those words said the word Vayishchotem. And when he's saying the words of the Goyim, it would have made seemingly more sense that he should say that the Goyim are going to say that Vaharogim, that he killed them in the Midbar, not Vayishchotem. Says the Rebbe, this itself tells us that what Moshe Rabbeinu actually meant was that even the Goyim are going to understand that Hashem is doing this for the benefit of the Yidden. Vayishchotem. And still they're going to say, Mebilti Yechelas Hashem, that Hashem wasn't able to bring the Yidden in Eretz Yisrael. How does this make sense? Says the Rebbe, the explanation in this is emphasizing the word that the Pasuk says, Vayishchotem bamidbar. What does this mean? The arichos in the words of Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu says, "V'amru al yoshev haaretz hazois," that the people are going to say, "Shamu ki ato Hashem b'kerev ha'am hazeh." Everyone heard how Hashem, you are amongst these people. Asher ayin ba'ayin nira, you have appeared to them eye to eye, etc., etc. All of these words are bringing out that the Goyim know the tremendous love that Hashem has for the Yidden. The Rebbe is quoting Rashi right now, that the Goyim up until now never realized that your Ava, that your love was removed from them. They know about Hashem's promise to bring the Yidden into Eretz Yisrael, as Moshe Rabbeinu himself says. And therefore, knowing the tremendous love that Hashem has to the Yidden, and knowing the promise of bringing him to Eretz Yisrael, so what are the Goyim going to think? That even if it's true that the Yidden might be in a situation where the Eibishter needs to go through this process of Vayishchotem for their benefit, in other words, the Goyim could also understand that perhaps the Yidden might need to go through this, and yet, in their mind, what should have Hashem done? He should have at least first brought them into Eretz Yisrael, as it was all planned from the outset, to fulfill that promise. And if there's a need to punish them, then later, once they're in Eretz Yisrael, he could carry out this punishment, Vayishchotem, etc. So Moshe Rabbeinu is saying that if you're going to kill them now in the Midbar, then the Goyim are going to say, yes, there may have been an inyan of Vayishchotem. Maybe it's all part of Hashem's love for the Yidden. But nevertheless, why is Hashem doing it in the Midbar and not bringing them to Eretz Yisrael? There's still this issue that Hashem is not bringing them to Eretz Yisrael because Hashem is not able to bring the Yidden into the land that He promised them. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu is arguing. Says the Rebbe, based on all of this, what comes out is that the Akenu Badever of the Doira Midbar is an inyan, this idea of Vayishchotem is all an inyan of really Hashem wanting to elevate the Yidden. In other words, all of this is a hachana that they should be able to be zoicha to get to Olam Haba. Now, practically, that didn't happen at the moment. They didn't all die at that time, as we know. Lepoil, they ended up dying over the 40 years. So the Rebbe says, so from this it's understood by Mekolshkin, surely, once this actually happens over the next 40 years, that Hashem does strike down over 40 years, the purpose, of course, is to be able to bring them to Olam Haba. Says the Rebbe, this fits and is in accordance to the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. We know there's a machloikus about this. But Rabbi Eliezer is of the opinion that Doir HaMidbar, boy in Olam Haba, do get Olam Haba. And Olam Haba over here means the life of the neshama in a guf b'tchias hamesim. The Rebbe says this is also understood from a number of places. In Zoyar, and to the extent, says the Rebbe, it says in the Medrash and in the Zoyar that this is actually the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu didn't go into Eretz Yisrael and he remained in the Midbar, so that he could be together with them and get up to Tchias HaMesim together with them to lead them into Eretz Yisrael Asid Lavai. Now, even though we just said there's a machloikus whether they have Olam Haba or not, but we know that there's a rule that when there's a machloikus in Nigla de Torah, so then we look of what it says in Haggadah, in the Zoyar, and we go based on that. We paskin according to that. And therefore, here too, even though there's a machloikas, but we're going with this opinion that they do have Olam Haba. Especially, says the Rebbe, that in our case, from the Gemara itself, it seems to imply that the halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer. Because the one who argues with Rabbi Eliezer saying that they don't have a Chelek Olam Haba is Rabbi Akiva. Now here's the interesting thing. Rabbi Akiva is usually the one that's always being melamed schus on Yidden, trying to defend the Yidden. And here the Gemara actually says about Rabbi Akiva, Shavka Rabbi Akiva la Chasidusi. Rabbi Akiva seems to have let go of his way of usually defending the Yidden. In other words, the Gemara itself seems to be saying that the halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer, that they do have a Chelek Olam Haba. Says the Rebbe, according to what we just explained about the punishments of Torah generally, and more specifically the meaning of the word Vayishchatem, it's understood that not only the Doir HaMidbar generally has a portion in Olam Haba, but even the Meraglim themselves. That even though they did have their punishment immediately, the pasuk says, "Vayamusu anoshim eitziyah dibas haaretz ra b'magei lefnei Hashem." Those that let out the bad rumors about Eretz Yisrael died immediately in a plague in front of Hashem. Says the Rebbe, yet even they also have a Chelek Olam Haba. Now, even though in the Mishnah in Bavli it says that the Meraglim don't have a Chelek Olam Haba, the Gemara learns out from the pasuk Vayamusu b'mageifa, the one we just quoted, that Vayamusu means they die in Olam Hazeh, but Mageifa implies also in Olam Haba. Nevertheless, in the Zoyar it seems to be saying that even they also have a Chelek Olam Haba. And according to this, says the Rebbe, we could say that in truth, even in Bavli, even though the Mishnah says they don't have a Chelek Olam Haba, but it doesn't mean that everyone agrees to it. It's not what's called a Stam Mishnah that everyone agrees to it. It's not said without a name of a Tana. Rather, when Rabbi Eliezer says in the Mishnah that the Meraglim, that the Doir HaMidbar has a portion in Olam Haba, Rabbi Eliezer brings a pasuk, and the Rebbe is about to show that this pasuk, Rabbi Eliezer says, is not only going to apply to the Doir HaMidbar, but also to that which was discussed earlier about the Meraglim not having the Olam Haba. The Rebbe is now going to say that when Rabbi Eliezer says that the Doir HaMidbar has a Chelek Olam Haba, it's also referring to the Meraglim. What's the pasuk Rabbi Eliezer says? Rabbi Eliezer says that regarding the Doir HaMidbar, it says, is fully chasidah. He's calling them my pious ones, my righteous ones. Those that made a covenant with me, with a carbon. And the Rebbe is saying that this pasuk that Rabbi Eliezer is saying about the Doir HaMidbar is not only referring to the Doir HaMidbar, but also to that which the Mishnah discussed earlier about the Meraglim. And the Rebbe says we can understand this from the pasuk itself. What does the pasuk mean? Rashi explains that Korsev Risi means those that made the bris with Hashem with the Zvachim and the Shlomim, as the pasuk says, in connection to Matan Torah, Vayizbuchu Zvachim Shlomim. The pasuk says, Vayizrek Ala'am, that Moshe Rabbeinu sprinkled the blood on the nation. It says, Hine Dama Bris, this is the blood of the bris that Hashem made a covenant with you. Who were the ones that were part of this bris? It says, not only referring to the general Doir HaMidbar, the Meraglim were also part of those that made the covenant with Hashem at the time of Matan Torah. And therefore it applies to them too. Now, even though, yes, it's true that the sin of the Meraglim was much worse than the sin of the general Doir HaMidbar, nevertheless, let's understand what a bris means. Since the idea of a bris is, and again, the bris included the Meraglim also. What is a bris? The Rebbe is now quoting from Lekutei Torah. A bris is the idea that you have two people that really love each other, and they make a bris, they make a covenant between each other, that their ava will never ever cease. They're afraid maybe something's going to happen one day that should try to negate and to nullify this love. This Krisis Bris is saying that we are going to remain forever loving each other no matter what. Says the Rebbe, so it's understood that even in a situation that the person is doing something that he shouldn't be doing, and according to logic and reason, the Ava should have stopped or caused some sort of hate, as in fact you would say is the story with the Meraglim, and yet the idea of the bris means that the love is going to remain between those that made the bris with the same intensity as the time the bris was made. And the Rebbe is again quoting from the Maimer, which says, since they came in such a bris, such a eskashrus, it's literally as if they became one. And this exact whole mashal is exactly what Hashem does for us, making this bris with us. Says the Rebbe, from all of this we have the Hayrah, how we have to look at every single Yid, no matter what state the person should be in. Even if we think that the person is as terrible as that Meraglim Rachmanu Litzlan, we always need to look and see his true mitzias, that he's one of these, that the Mishnah says about him, that Kol Yisrael, Yesh Lehem Chelek Olam Haba, that he too has a portion of Olam Haba. Because as the Mishnah goes on to bring from the pasuk that he's Neitzer Matoy, Hashem says he's the planting of the branch of what I planted. My handiwork, Hashem says, who I pride myself with it. And therefore, we get it involved with the person. We try to help him to bring this out in an open way, in a revealed way in his daily life, to bring that good out within him. And that achieves, that even the Goyim realize, as it says in the parasha, Ki ato Hashem bekerev ha'amazeh, that you Hashem are within the people. Asher ayin bayin nira ato Hashem, you meet with them and you see them, you appear to them eye to eye. And again quoting the Rashi, that it's all in a way of love, that the Goyim never see that the Eibishter ever removed his love from them. And therefore the Goyim too come along to help the Yidden. And all of the Yidden, every single Yidden, whatever they need, as the pasuk says, that the kings will be those that are taking care of your children. V'sarisayim, and their princes, minikosayach, will be your nurses. And that will happen even at the end of Zman HaGolus, and that itself hastens Bias Mashiach Tzidkenu, which will come and fix the whole world, to be serving Hashem together, as the pasuk says, that all of the nations together will call out to Hashem and serve the Eibishter all as one.